how much more can these people and these factions take? You know, the Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King, Cataclysm. I'm so excited about this latest chapter because it just brings in so much of the mythology of the world and the richness of its characters. And, you know, apart from just clever story hooks, it begins to truly show how much soul is possible, you know, how much emotional connectivity you can have to these events and these characters. For the genre and for just the World of Warcraft in particular, I think there's a little bit something for everybody, whether you're re-leveling again 1 through 60, which is surprisingly emotional, given these lands that you've known and ventured through all this time, to see them reborn in new ways. But with all of these things combined, it just feels just very rich and very satisfying, in terms of the fiction finally coming full circle and all the mythology of the world completing this circuit.
World of Warcraft's a 5-year-old game. It's got a huge history. And I was part of that history. I was a player. So to come in on Cataclysm, where we're going to redo some of the old world, that's really cool for me as a player. I get all geeked up about it because I get to come in and I remember the quests I didn't like, and I remember the things that bothered me as a player. I get to fix them. I can actually go back to the old world and really fix this stuff up.
It's all about upheaval. And it's not just the physical upheaval, but the political upheaval that's occurred.
So Thrall, right? He's very central to events in Cataclysm. And in a lot of ways, he's kind of maybe like the most popular Warcraft character singularly. He's this interesting mix of kind of old school orc and but raised by humans and kind of found a new way to lead the Horde, lead his people. He's very principled. He's very Superman-like, right? I think most people, when they consider Thrall, well, he's incorruptible. He always does the right thing. He's mega powerful. And one of the really interesting themes of Cataclysm that we've been exploring is just the idea that things fall apart, right? At a global level, at an environmental level, at a societal level, at a spiritual level. And really looking at Thrall, that this pillar of all things Warcraft, right? The one incorruptible dude out there. What if Thrall's sense of identity was in jeopardy as well? That's a pretty radical, thing for that character. And it just felt immediately true. Like, yeah, we started looking at Thrall. He brought his people out of slavery. Was raised as a gladiator, but really became this very wise, shamanic, messianic character, right? United two worlds and, created a new homeland for his people. And the idea that all of his experience that looks so noble and is so, super heroic. What if at base, he was just this lonely kid whose parents were murdered? There's a little more Bruce Wayne going on there than anyone would suspect. And all of this duty and obligation and all of the things he has done for his people to distinguish himself. What if it's actually more of like a warped codependency? He actually doesn't know who he is outside of this duty, outside of this mission that he has to always be the answer, always solve the problem. And he's done very well, but what if inside is actually pretty hollow?
As the initial ripples start to hit the world and we can start feeling Deathwing writhing beneath us, in the plane of Deep Home and the plane of Earth, Thrall senses this and senses something is wrong, something is happening on the tail end of this Northrend expansion. This initiates the changing of the guard. As Garrosh is coming off the victory and we're starting to feel more tremors and bad things happen, Thrall puts him in charge in the interim, an interim war chief of sorts. Garrosh is the son of Grom Hellscream, a legendary orc, probably the most important orc, or one of the most important orcs to exist. An interesting and often overlooked facet of Garrosh's character is he's a brown orc. Players actually tend to take this for granted. They just look at it like, yeah, he's a brown orc. What does that even mean? Well, it actually has great meaning to orcs. Brown is the original color of orcs. Orcs were brown from birth on Draenor. What corrupted them was the blood curse. When Garrosh's father Grom drank from Manoroth's blood, and essentially the rest of the orcs did, they underwent a physical transformation, this curse that changed their skin from brown to green and affected their eyes and other things as well. So when an orc that has come through the dark portal and has endured the blood curse and other things, terrible things, sees another brown orc, they have a very, very visceral reaction, in a good way. I think that you see that you almost see yourself back when things were good, when things were pure, when there wasn't insanity happening to your homeworld and it being torn apart. And that's something that hits them instantly. So they see this brown orc that represents pretty much the ultimate. So this is what Thrall had to contend with in terms of who he puts to power.
The earth is starting to buckle. The cataclysm is beginning. Thrall decides to head back to, the old country in Outland, to go to Nagron, Throne of the Elements, and talk to elementals who have lived through the destruction of their world. Hey guys, are there things I can look for, to tell me if my world's gonna blow up? And while he goes back to Nagron, he meets a character named Agra, who is a shaman, lieutenant of Thrall's grandma, Gaia. Thrall and Agra will kind of become an item. And Agra, as a very accomplished shaman herself, will kind of challenge Thrall. You wear the name of slave. Like, who do you think you are? People think you're this rock star war chief, but like when I look at you, I feel the depth of the insecurity, the depth of the hollowness. The rhythms and systemic thinking that Thrall's become all about. And she challenges him at that most innate level. They're like, did you really know who you are? Do you really believe, that the self, image you have is the truest you? And throughout the events of Cataclysm, ultimately Agra and Thrall will come back to Azeroth, and he will rally the Earthen Ring, and he will leave the Horde to literally go out and try and knit the world back together. But over the course of his adventures, he will see who he truly is, and his own spiritual realization of the truth of him, of the power of his life, of his connectivity with all these characters and people that he loves and the people that he loves. His own healing will ultimately empower him to play a big part in saving the world and healing the world, literally.